Okay, this one is going to be the bubble sort. And the idea of the bubble sort is that unlike the insertion sort where we found something, we inserted it at the correct place, the bubble sort is going to just swap two items about, and what's going to happen is that the things will eventually bubble into place. That's why it's called bubble sort. So here was the numbers I started off with, 4132, as with the insertion sort, and we know what the end result should look like, 1, 2, 3, 4. The first thing I need to do is write down pass 1. Now this is really, really important, only occurs with the bubble sort, is the fact that, well, you'll see, we're going to put the dots on top of the numbers as we did before, but we can't just do it once, as we did with the insertion sort, because the list will not be sorted the first time we reach the end of the list. We'll have to go through it again and again and again. So let's write down my numbers, 4, 1, 3, 2, and put a dot on top of the 1. So that's my second element. I'm going to start comparing it with the number to the left. So is 1 less than 4? Yes it is, so I'm going to swap those two around. So that becomes 1 and 4, they're swapped, the rest stay the same. You could sort of underline each one of these to show that those two were swapped, but I think those two arrows there will do the job. That will indicate to the examiner that you know what you're talking about. So I'm going to write a line underneath that because that's my first job. But because I did a swap, I'm going to write SW here to tell me that I've swapped. This is generally called a flag. We use it in programming quite a lot. And the idea is if I can go through each one of these items in turn and there is no swap, then the list is sorted. So I'm going to write this red line out again, 1, 4, 3, 2, and I'm going to place my dot on the next index over, and I'm going to compare these two. 3 is less than 4, so I am going to swap them over. So I get 1, these two swap positions, and I get 2 at the end. Okay, so that's that one done. And then I've already written down swap, so I don't need to write it again. I'm going to rewrite out my number. That's the next thing I'm going to go for, and put the dot on top of the 2. All of this helps the examiner know exactly what you're doing. 2 is less than 4, so I'm going to be swapping those two. Okay, so write down the 1, the 3, and swap these two over, 2 and 4. And that is the end of my first pass. With the insertion sort, when we got here, the list was sorted. With the bubble sort, when we get to this position, the last position in the list, notice that the list isn't sorted. So we have to do things again. And that is called pass 2. And if I just write down the list as it finished up, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm ready to go again. Let's just move the paper up so I've got some space. And I put the dot on top of the 3, that's my starting position. So I'm going to check these two. 3 is not less than 1, so they're in order. So I'm going to write a line underneath there to show that I've done that step. And I'm going to write down 1, 3, 2, 4 again. That might look a little bit strange, but the whole purpose of that is to show that I'm moving on in my list when I'm comparing things. If you don't do that, you'll be missing a line out of the algorithm and it won't look right, and it won't be right. So I'm going to check these two now. So with the 2, 2 is less than 3, so those two are going to swap over, and because I've got a swap, I'm going to indicate with my flag that I've made a swap. In other words, this is not my last pass, so I'm going to have to go through at least one more time. So the 1 stays the same, these two swap over, 2 and the 3, and the 4 stays there. So I've made a swap. So write out my numbers again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and this time I'm putting my dot on top of the 4. Now you can see that that list is already ordered, but we haven't finished, so this is where you really need to pay attention. Checking again, 4 is not less than 3, so there is no swap, and that is the end of that pass. So what I'm going to have to do now is have a third pass. So I'm going to go on to pass 3 and write down my numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and put the dot on top of the 2. So I'm going to check these two. 2 is not less than 1, so I'm not going to swap them over. That's the end of that. Write down my numbers again. 1, 2, 3, put the dot on top of the 3 and the 4. 3 is not less than 2, so I finish with that one. So I'm going to write a line, and I'm going to copy my numbers out again. 1, 2, 3, 4, put the dot on top of the 4. 4 is not less than 3, put my line there, and I've run out of indexes, I can't go any further. I didn't write down SW for swap, so in other words, I made no swaps on this particular pass, and if I make no swaps on the pass, then the list is sorted, and that is really, really important to understand. So I don't know whether you can see all the items in there. Let's just bring it down. Pass 1, I made a swap. Pass 2, I made a swap. Pass 3, there was no swap, and the list ended up sorted. That is the bubble sort.